The Galactic Academy was one of the greatest schools in the entire galaxy. Students from hundreds of worlds studied there. They came from planets with endless oceans, crystal skies, and perfect weather. Most of them believed they were advanced, smart, and superior. That day, the classroom was full. Alien students sat in floating seats, talking loudly and laughing. The lesson was about primitive civilizations. Most students expected boring facts about failed planets. Then the professor entered. He was old, calm, and respected. The room slowly became quiet. He activated the large screen behind him. A small blue planet appeared. Today, the professor said slowly, we will study a planet called Earth. For a moment, there was silence. Then the laughter started. Some students clicked their claws in amusement. Others shook their heads. Earth, one student laughed. That weak planet. I heard they have no natural armor, another said. They don't even have sharp claws, a third added. How did they survive? The screen showed images of humans. Soft bodies. No thick skin. No natural weapons. The laughter grew louder. One student stood up and spoke with confidence. Professor, this planet should not even support intelligent life. The gravity is too high. The weather is unstable. The creatures are dangerous. Many students agreed. Earth looked small compared to their home worlds. Its storms were violent. Its oceans were deep and wild. Its land was full of predators. The professor did not stop them. He waited. Finally, he raised one hand. The room became silent again. You are correct about one thing, he said. Earth is not an easy world. He pressed a button. The screen changed. Now it showed earthquakes, volcanoes, hurricanes, and floods. Fires burned across forests. Ice covered entire lands. Some students leaned forward, curious. This planet, the professor continued, is officially classified as a death world. The word echoed in the room. Death world. The laughter stopped. Students exchanged nervous looks. That cannot be true, one whispered. Death worlds kill most life. And yet, the professor said calmly, humans survived. The screen now showed early humans. They ran from predators. They hunted with simple tools. They struggled, failed, and stood up again. One student frowned. They look weak. They are weak, the professor replied. Compared to many of you. The students relaxed again. Some even smiled. But weakness, the professor added, does not mean harmless. The screen changed once more. It showed humans standing in the rain. Humans fighting in wars. Humans helping each other after disasters. Humans rebuilding broken cities. They live on a planet that tries to kill them every day, the professor said. High gravity. Deadly animals. Constant disease. Endless conflict. A quiet tension filled the room. One student slowly raised a tentacle. Professor, if they are so weak, why are they still alive? The professor looked at the class. That, he said, is the wrong question. He walked closer to the screen. The real question is, he continued, what kind of species survives a death world, and then chooses to explore the galaxy? The screen went dark. The professor turned back to the class. You laughed at Earth, he said. Many civilizations did the same. He paused. Most of them are gone now. The room was completely silent. No one laughed anymore. And somewhere in the vast galaxy, the name Earth no longer sounded like a joke. The classroom stayed silent for several long seconds. The alien students were no longer laughing, but many of them still looked doubtful. Earth did not feel scary to them. It felt strange, yes, but not powerful. The professor turned back to the screen. Let us look deeper, he said calmly. He waved his hand, and new data appeared. Numbers, graphs, and warning symbols filled the air. This is Earth's gravity, he said. Almost twice the comfort level for most of you. Some students shifted in their seats. And this, he continued, is Earth's climate. The screen showed burning deserts, frozen lands, violent storms, and endless rain. One student clicked his mandibles. Many planets have bad weather. That means nothing. The professor nodded. True. Now look at this. The screen changed again. Deadly animals appeared. Sharp teeth. Fast claws. Poisonous creatures. Huge predators hunting in groups. These creatures share the planet with humans, the professor said. A student laughed nervously. So the humans hide. That is survival, not strength. Another student added, they use tools because they are weak. Without technology, they would be gone. Many students agreed. The professor did not argue. Instead, he showed another image. Early humans stood around a fire. They were injured, tired, hungry. Humans had no claws, the professor said. No armor. No natural weapons. The students watched closely. They hunted animals larger than themselves, he continued. They faced predators stronger than them. One student leaned forward. Then how did they win? The professor smiled slightly. They failed, he said. Again and again. The screen showed humans falling, being injured, losing members of their groups. Most species avoid pain, the professor explained. Humans learn from it. The students grew quiet. The screen now showed humans adapting, sharpening stones, working together, building shelters. They changed their environment, the professor said. Not the other way around. One student crossed their arms. Still, they are fragile. One mistake and they die. Yes, the professor replied. And yet they keep moving forward. The screen shifted again. It showed diseases, viruses, plagues. Earth has more natural diseases than most known worlds, the professor said. Many were invisible killers. Some students looked uncomfortable. But humans did not disappear, he continued. They studied. They fought back. They survived. A student whispered, why would anyone live there? The professor heard it. They did not choose Earth, he said. Earth shaped them. The room felt heavier now. Another student spoke up. Professor, if humans struggle so much, why should the galaxy fear them? The professor paused. That is a fair question, he said. He looked at the class slowly. Humans learned to live with fear, he continued. They learned to move forward while afraid. The screen showed humans climbing mountains, sailing wild oceans, and standing in storms. They became experts at survival, the professor said. A student shook their head. Survival is not dominance. The professor nodded again. No, he agreed. But survival creates something else. He pressed another button. The screen froze on one image. A human standing, injured, but still standing. Endurance, the professor said. The class was silent. In the next lesson, he added, you will see what happens when endurance meets conflict. The screen went dark once more. The alien students looked at each other. Earth was still strange. Humans were still weak. But for the first time, the class felt unsure if they were laughing at the right planet. The next lesson began without laughter. The alien students entered the classroom quietly. Their eyes moved toward the large screen, waiting. Something about Earth no longer felt amusing. The professor stood in front of them, calm as always. Today, he said, you will see the truth behind human survival. He activated the screen. Images of early Earth filled the room. Cold lands covered in ice. Hot lands burning under the sun. Violent storms tearing apart forests. Most species, the professor said, are built for one environment. The screen showed different alien worlds, each calm and stable. Humans were not, he continued. The screen changed. Humans were shown living in snow, deserts, jungles, and mountains. They adapted to all of it, the professor said. Not perfectly, but enough. A student spoke softly. That is still not special. The professor nodded. Then let us continue. The screen now showed human history. Wars. Conflicts. Cities burning. Families running. Earth was not only dangerous by nature, the professor explained. Humans were also dangerous to each other. Some students shifted uncomfortably. Many species collapsed during internal conflict, he said. Humans did not. The screen showed humans rebuilding after wars. Stronger walls. Better tools. They learned from loss, the professor said. The class watched as humans faced hunger, fear, and death. They felt pain, he continued. Deep pain. The screen zoomed in on injured humans still moving forward. They cried, the professor said. They broke. A student whispered, then why continue? The professor looked at them. Because they hope, he answered. The screen changed again. Humans helping each other. Pulling survivors from ruins. Sharing food. They form bonds, the professor said. Strong ones. Another student frowned. Emotions make species weak. The professor turned slowly. Emotions, he said, make humans dangerous. The room went still. The screen showed humans protecting their young. Standing between danger and family. They fight harder when others depend on them, the professor said. The images shifted to soldiers standing together. They do not fight alone, he added. A student raised their voice. But they are still small. Still fragile. Yes, the professor replied. And still standing. The screen changed again. It showed humans pushing past limits. Running while injured. Lifting impossible weight in moments of fear. When humans believe there is no other choice, the professor said, they exceed their limits. The students stared. Most species surrender when survival chances drop, he continued. Humans take it as a challenge. Silence filled the room. The screen paused on one image. A human, blooded, tired, but smiling. That smile, the professor said, confuses many species. The class leaned forward. It is not happiness, he explained. It is defiance. The professor turned away from the screen. Humans do not fear pain the way you do, he said. They accept it. A student swallowed. Is that why the galaxy fears them? The professor did not answer immediately. He pressed the final button. The screen displayed a single word. Endurance. That, the professor said quietly, is the core of humanity. The room felt cold. The professor faced the class. In the next lesson, he said, you will learn what happens when endurance is pushed into war. No one spoke. No one laughed. The truth about humans was no longer simple. And Earth no longer felt like just another death world. The classroom felt different now. The alien students no longer sat comfortably in their seats. Some leaned forward. Others stayed very still. The word endurance still echoed in their minds. The professor stood quietly for a moment. Now, he said, we talk about fear. He activated the screen again. This time, the images were not from Earth. They were from space. Broken ships drifted in silence. Burned stations floated without power. Warnings flashed in red symbols. These are records from the early expansion era, the professor explained. The students watched closely. One by one, he continued, many advanced civilizations met humans for the first time. The screen showed alien fleets approaching human space. Their ships were larger. Their weapons were stronger. They believed humans were easy to control, the professor said. A soft species from a harsh planet. A student whispered, that sounds reasonable. The professor nodded. That belief ended many empires. The screen changed. Humans were shown negotiating, talking, offering peace. They always start this way, the professor said. Humans prefer peace. Some students relaxed slightly. But, the professor added, peace is not weakness. The screen shifted again. An image of a human colony under attack appeared. Buildings burned. Civilians ran. The room grew tense. When humans are threatened, the professor said, something changes. The screen showed human ships launching. Smaller. Fewer. Damaged. They were outmatched, he said. Outnumbered. A student spoke nervously. Then they should have lost. Yes, the professor replied. They should have. The screen now showed the battles. Human ships moved unpredictably. They charged directly into danger. They sacrificed vessels to protect others. They do not fight to survive alone, the professor said. They fight for each other. The students watched as humans kept fighting even after heavy losses. They retreat, the professor continued, only to return stronger. The screen showed humans rebuilding ships faster, changing designs, improving weapons. They learn during war, the professor said. Pain becomes information. A low sound of unease spread through the class. Most species avoid total loss, the professor explained. Humans accept it, if it means victory. The screen froze on an image of a human pilot, wounded but still fighting. They push beyond fear, the professor said. Beyond reason. A student asked quietly, why do they not stop? The professor looked at them. Because surrender, he said, is worse than death to them. The screen changed again. Alien fleets retreating. Human ships standing alone in damaged space. The galaxy learned something that day, the professor said. The room was silent. Humans are not dangerous because they are strong, he continued. They are dangerous because they refuse to give up. The screen showed treaties signed. Borders redrawn. After that, the professor said, no one laughed at Earth. An alien student swallowed hard. So, humans won the war. The professor paused. They survived it, he answered. That was enough. The screen slowly faded to black. Since then, the professor said, humans have been classified as a high-risk species. Fear was visible on many faces now. They smile, he added. They joke. They make friends. He turned toward the class. But if you ever force them into a corner, he said calmly, remember this lesson. The room held its breath. Humans do not fight to win, the professor finished. They fight to make sure you lose. No one spoke. The fear was no longer imagined. It was learned. The classroom remained silent long after the screen went dark. No one moved. No one laughed. The alien students who once mocked Earth now avoided each other's eyes. The stories they had seen were not myths. They were records. Facts. History written in loss and survival. The professor slowly turned off the projector. Today's lesson is almost complete, he said calmly. One student finally broke the silence. Professor, they asked, their voice low, are humans monsters? The professor looked at them carefully. No, he said. They are not monsters. The class waited. They are survivors, he continued. The professor walked slowly across the room. Humans did not become feared because they wanted power, he said. They became feared because they refused to disappear. The screen lit up one last time. It showed modern Earth. Cities full of light. Children laughing. Humans working, building, exploring. They love deeply, the professor said. They protect fiercely. The image changed. Human explorers stepped onto distant worlds. They planted flags, not of conquest, but of presence. They carry their death world with them, the professor said. Inside their bodies. Inside their minds. A student whispered, then why do they smile so much? The professor allowed a small smile of his own. Because every peaceful day, he said, feels like a victory to them. The class watched humans sharing food with aliens. Laughing with species far different from themselves. They make friends easily, the professor said. They joke. They trust. The screen paused. But never forget, he added, that kindness was built on struggle. The image shifted again. Humans standing together during disasters. holding hands in ruins, refusing to leave anyone behind. When humans say we will endure, the professor said, it is not a promise. It is a warning. The room felt heavy with understanding. The professor turned off the screen completely. You laughed at Earth, he said softly. So did many before you. He looked at each student. They learned too late, he continued, that a death world does not create weak life. He paused. It creates life that refuses to break. One student slowly stood. Professor, they asked, what should the galaxy do when meeting humans? The professor answered without hesitation. Respect them, he said, and never push them into desperation. The bell signaling the end of class echoed through the academy. The students stood in silence and began to leave. No jokes were made. No smiles remained. Outside the classroom, stars filled the endless sky. Somewhere among them was Earth. Small, blue, alive. Once, it was called a failure. Once, it was mocked. Now, it was known as something else. A death world that shaped a species strong enough to face the galaxy. And the galaxy remembered one simple truth. Earth was not feared because it was deadly. Earth was feared because humans survived it.